Petronas posted a loss after tax of 21 billion for the second quarter as oil demand contracted sharply by as much as 22 million barrels per day in April as the COVID-19 pandemic ravaged the industry. The quarterly loss was also widened by a net impairment of 20.77 billion, a quantum leap from 179 million a year ago due to the oil price collapse. This is Petronas' first quarterly loss since the fourth quarter of FY15. Quarterly revenue dropped 42.4% to 34.03 billion compared with 59.1 billion last year. For the first half of FY20, Petronas posted a net loss of 16.5 billion versus 28.9 billion for the previous year, while revenue dropped 22.7% to 93.6 billion. Petronas' newly minted president and group CEO Tengku Muhammad Taufik Tengku Aziz says that earnings would be severely impacted by the pandemic. As such, he says Petronas will pay its stakeholders dividends if it can afford to, as it seeks to conserve cash and preserve its liquidity. In the first half, the national oil firm generated an operating cash flow of 26.26 billion, while its cash pile stood at 156.86 billion as at end June. Hurt by low demand, Petronas is opting to cut its capex by 20% from its initial guidance of 50 billion and will also cut OPEX by 12%. Even so, Muhammad Taufik discounted the possibility of retrenching its employees, instead discussing salary cuts as it faced the tough times ahead as a family. Selangor warns that the current water disruption affecting around 1.2 million users in the Klang Valley would continue for another 4 days. Reports quote Chief Executive Suhaimi Kamaral Zaman as saying that the water treatment plants need to be at contamination level 0 TON before it is safe. He says currently contamination levels are at 1 TON. To recap, the Sungai Selangor Phase 1, 2, 3 and Rantau Panjang water treatment plants were forced to stop yesterday due to pollution, leaving 1,292 areas in 7 regions of Klang Valley with dry taps. PPB Group expects its financial performance to remain resilient in the second half, supported by its grains and agribusiness, as well as its consumer products segment. Group MD Lim Soon Huat says its grain segment was not significantly impacted by COVID-19, as it is in the production and distribution of essential food products. Grains and agribusiness is PPB's largest revenue contributor. According to Lim, its consumer products business will focus on food service and other channels via e-commerce. PPB is also in the midst of constructing a new wheat flour mill and setting up a new 22 million ringgit production facility in Pulau Indah dedicated to halal certified frozen food. As for its movie business, which saw a net loss in the first half due to the movement control order, COVID-19 remains a substantial challenge. PPB owns Golden Screen Cinemas that is currently operating at just half capacity, says CEO Koh Mei Lee. However, the group is working to obtain approval from the government to return cinemas to full capacity. She adds the hope is with the launch of Tenet and Mulan, plus the upcoming slate of big movies such as Black Widow and Wonder Woman 1984, this would help kickstart a return to normalcy. The AG's Chambers has dropped its criminal charges against Goldman Sachs and its 2 Asian subsidiaries over their involvement in the 1MDB scandal. This comes after the government reached a settlement with Goldman Sachs and the role the bank played in raising $6.5 billion in bonds for several of 1MDB's purchases. Last week, Malaysia received a $2.5 billion tranche payment. To recap, on July 24th, the Wall Street Bank had agreed to a settlement with Malaysia amounting to almost $4 billion. However, the AG says it will still be proceeding with charges against former Goldman Sachs banker Roger Ng Chong Hua, and the government is seeking his return to face these charges. Ng is currently in the US to face charges over 1MDB-linked offences, and his case is currently being heard before the US District Court for the Eastern District of New York. Comfort Gloves has come out to clarify that the Lau family's controlling interest in the company via investment vehicle Keen Setup remains intact. To recap, according to a boss filing yesterday, Brian Lau Ju Kian ceased to be a substantial shareholder in Comfort Gloves after he disposed of a 14.4% stake. Today, Comfort Gloves explained that while Ju Kian ceased to be a substantial shareholder due to an internal restructuring in Keen Setup, the family still holds controlling interests. Ju Kian, who is the son of Datuk Lau Eng Guan, had disposed of of his shares to an immediate family member, which meant his interest in Keen's setup dropped below 20%. Eng Guang is from the Lau family that controls Leong Hap International. Ju Kian's brother Lau Ju Yong is an ED of Comfort Gloves, while his cousin Lau Ju Pen is non-executive ED.